For some reason, there's a special rule that it's not written anywhere that nobody sits in the front rows. It's like you can see the service from, with HD from here, and you're not taking. Judaism has many, many rules. And this evening, I would like to start talking about a rule that is not a Jewish rule, but applies very well to Judaism. So, Birshut HaRabbanim, with the permission of the rabbis, I want to talk about the 80-20 rule. Some say 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. 80% of the wealth belongs to 20% of the population. 80% of the results come from 20% of the actions. My 80-20 rule today is about relationships. Imagine I have a friend, and 80% of the times we interact, I am asking my friend to do things for me. Only in 20% of the interactions, I give something. I'm asking him or her all the time to drive my kid, help me with the groceries, lend me money, but rarely, only in 20% of the interactions, do I give a random call, a smile, or offer an invitation over. I am not sure this friendship is going to last long. So today, I'm going to do an 80-20 with you. I will dedicate 80% of my sermon to stories, and I will only ask you to take action on 20%. Is that a deal? Yes, good. If you said no, end of the sermon, and we're eating early. So I'd like to start my sermon first of all, by wishing you and all of us Shana Tova Umetuka. I hope this year is healthy, sweet, and joyful for all of us. Now, I would like to share with you an old story. The first one is a simple old story about a Hindu king who was riding on his chariot. On the side of the road, he saw a homeless beggar sleeping on the ground. He asked his driver to stop, and very quietly, the king descended from the chariot, took a huge emerald, a very expensive one, a precious stone, and very gently placed it on the beggar's pocket. He climbed the chariot again and left. The king's hope was that the beggar would be able to sell the precious stone and make a living from it. 5 years later, the king happened to visit the same town again, and his chariot passed by the same place. To his surprise, he saw the beggar with the same clothing, a little bit older than the previous time, in the same position, still sleeping. The king descending from the chariot, not quietly this time, and without any delicate manners, he woke the beggar up and screamed at him, "What are you doing here?" "I'm a poor man," said the beggar. "What's going on with your clothes? Why are you still here?" said the king. "What about the emerald?" The beggar was shocked. He couldn't barely speak. He didn't know what to say. He mumbled, "What emerald are you talking about?" The king screamed at the beggar, saying, "The one I put in your pocket 5 years ago." The beggar put his hand into his pocket, and suddenly he found a huge, precious stone. He took it out and looked at it, and then looked at the king. The beggar said to the king, "It never occurred to me to search in here." Dear friends, if you're here this night of Rosh Hashanah, it is because it occurred to you to search here. If you're here tonight, it is because you are searching for something and you came here to look for that something. So thank you. Thank you for dedicating your time to search together, and thank you for doing it with your congregation, with your people. There is something that moved you today to be here. So what are you looking for besides a short sermon and a short hineni? Why did you come today? Why are you here? What are you looking for today? So let me give you 28 seconds to think, to meditate on what is that brought you here today. I'm counting. Maybe what brought you here, I know it was less than 28, is shofar, community, tradition, passion, love, grandparents, time out of work, time out from cell phone, friends, to hear the shofar tomorrow morning, to hear the rabbi's joke, to repeat it for the rest of the year. Something brought you here, and only you know what it is. I am sure what brought you here today is meaningful, is evocative, and is relevant. Now let me tell you what motivated me to be here today. Among the many emotions that move me and my soul during the high holidays, there is one that I try to transmit every single year. For me, there is a concept, a feeling that I embrace during the Yamim Noraim, the high holidays, that I try to extend it to the rest of the year. And this year, I want to ask you to join me in it. I call that concept to be all in. I am here this year to ask you to be all in. This is my 20%. I know I owe you several stories, but to be all in means to be like Abraham, our forefather, a person of faith, integrity, devotion, and commitment. Abraham did not hesitate for a second to offer his most precious treasure, his son Isaac, because Abraham was all in with God. So I'm here to ask you to be all in as Abraham. When someone immerses themselves in a mikvah to embrace Judaism, we require that person to be all in, no barriers, all in the waters of Judaism, all in our tradition. And if we require that from those who embrace Judaism by their own choice, the more so we should require that from those who got their identity for free. Abraham was all in, and Isaac was all in, his son. According to the Torah, the story of the Akedah happens after Acharei Adevarim Aele, sometime after this event. So the Midrash tells us that Yitzchak was arguing with Ishmael, his oldest brother, and he offered himself. Ishmael got his bris when he was 13, and Yitzchak only when he was 8. And he said, "You didn't feel anything," said Ishmael to Yitzchak. Huh? That's what you think? I'm ready to offer not just that, but all my body. So he said, I am all in. So I'm here today to ask you to be all in like Isaac was as well. To illustrate well what it means to be all in, let me share a second story. Many years ago, not me, but the person who told me the story, not me, was working as a volunteer in a hospital in Stanford. So, you know I cannot work in a hospital. I'll pass out as soon as I cross the first door. So anyway, so there I met a little girl. I still remember her name. Her name was Liz. Liz had only one chance to recover from a strange illness that she had. The only way to heal was to get a blood transfusion from her 5-year-old brother who had survived the same illness, and his body had developed the immune system to battle the illness. The doctor explained the situation to the brother of the girl and asked him if he would be ready to donate the blood for her younger sister. I saw the scene. The brother took a deep breath and said, I will do it if that saves my sister. As the transfusion was taking place, he was laying on one bed next to his sister, very calm and smiling. We were with both of them, and we saw how Liz's cheeks started to regain some color as she received her brother's blood. Suddenly, the face of her brother turned pale, and he stopped smiling. He looked at the doctor and asked with a trembling voice, "At what time will I start to die?" The 5-year-old boy had misinterpreted what the doctor had told him. The boy thought he should have to donate all his blood to his sister, and even so, he accepted. He was all in, and I am here today to ask you to be all in, to make the extra effort. A small change can make a big difference. Just 80-20. It's like a sound of the shofar. A second before it sounds, the room is silent. We blow out the small side of the shofar and we get the great sound. If you try to blow the one big end, you do not get a sound at all. This teaches us that we only need small steps to be all in. To be all in means that it's not necessary to have a white robe in order to cure. To be all in means that it is not necessary to carry a baby to be a parent. To be all in means that it's not necessary to be a rabbi to teach Torah. To be all in means that it's not necessary to have all your hair on your head to continue learning. To be all in means that it's not necessary to have money to make someone else richer. To be all in means that it's not necessary to speak in order to set the example. To be all in means it is not necessary to scream in order to be heard. To be all in means that you can still accept others' help in order to move forward. To be all in means that there are aspects of your life that can be improved and you are going to take care of that. It is the 20% we need to take care of. Another story. Yes? You're still awake. That's good. It is told about Alexander the Great, a very interesting story. In the 4th century BCE, after he conquered Europe and Asia Minor, he arrived to a place that today we call it India. When he was about to cross his new border, a general of his army stopped him and said, "Alexander, we cannot cross that border. We cannot move forward." Imagine Alexander's face. He asked why. The general replied, "Because there are no maps of this land." Alexander looked at him and said, "Mediocre armies stayed inside the maps. Great armies explore what is outside the maps." I'm here today to ask you to explore more, to be all in, which means to be outside your own map. F.A.O. Schwartz, the toy store of blessed memory, used to be one of the most and biggest attractions of New York City. One of the toys I loved the most when I visited there, not many times, but I visited there, was a punching bag in the shape of a man. I saw a father and a son playing there together. The boy punched the inflatable man, who tipped over and immediately bounced back after every punch. The father asked the young son why the man kept bouncing back up. The son thought for a moment and answered, "I guess because he's standing up on the inside." In order to be all in, we need to stand up inside. We stand up inside when we focus in giving and not only in receiving, as did the boy of the transfusion. People came to this world to give, not just to receive. We can only bounce back if we stand up on the inside. We can only bounce back if we are all in. We are all in when we discover that God is not the acronym, it's not an acronym that means guaranteed overnight delivery. And we relate to God with patience and with love. My 80% story is over now. My 20% request is that you are all in, so we can continue being an inclusive congregation where we welcome all in. I hope this new year you join me being all in. I hope the sounds of the shofar move you all to be all in. My wish for all of us is that we are all in the book of life. May God give us a healthy new year, and may we be all in. Shana Tova. Into you.